For decades, Tom Hanks and Rob Reiner have been linked by one of Hollywood's most beloved films and one of its most enduring creative partnerships. To the public, their relationship always appeared simple, two respected artists whose collaboration produced something timeless. But behind the smiles, interviews, and nostalgic praise, there's always been more to the story than fans were allowed to see. Now, at 69, Tom Hanks is speaking with a level of honesty and reflection that has surprised many. His recent remarks about Rob Reiner are not scandalous or bitter, but they are revealing. They offer a deeper look into the creative tension, mutual respect, and unspoken challenges that shaped their work together and influenced both of their careers in lasting ways. For years, Hanks avoided discussing the full reality of that collaboration in detail. Not out of secrecy, but out of loyalty. Hollywood relationships are often built on silence as much as success, and Hanks has always been known for his restraint. But time has a way of changing perspective. What once felt too personal to share now feels important to acknowledge. What makes this moment so compelling is not controversy, but clarity. Hanks isn't rewriting history, he's filling in the gaps. He's explaining what it was really like to work under intense creative expectations, how trust was built, where disagreements existed, and why that experience mattered so much to him as an actor and a person. In this video, we'll explore what Tom Hanks has finally revealed about Rob Reiner, why he chose to speak now, and how this truth reshapes the legacy of one of Hollywood's most iconic collaborations. Tom Hanks' rise to becoming one of Hollywood's most trusted and admired figures did not happen overnight. By the time he collaborated with Rob Reiner, Hanks was already transitioning from lighthearted roles into more emotionally complex territory. That period marked a turning point in his career, and working with Reiner played a critical role in shaping how he understood storytelling, discipline, and creative responsibility. What appeared effortless on screen was the result of intense preparation and a demanding creative environment behind the scenes. Rob Reiner was already known for his strong vision and uncompromising standards. He had a reputation for knowing exactly what he wanted and pushing collaborators to reach it. For Tom Hanks, this approach was both challenging and transformative. In later reflections, Hanks has acknowledged that Reiner did not simply direct performances, he dissected them. Every line delivery, every pause, every emotional beat was questioned and refined. It was not always comfortable, but it was deliberate. At the time, Hanks was still defining the kind of actor he wanted to become. Working under a director who demanded clarity and emotional truth forced him to confront his own habits. Reiner encouraged him to strip away excess and focus on authenticity. That process involved disagreements, revisions, and moments of frustration that never reached the public eye. The mutual respect that developed was earned, not assumed. What Hanks has emphasized in recent years is that this collaboration was not built on easy chemistry. It was built on trust forged through pressure. Reiner expected honesty from his actors, and he returned it in equal measure. If something wasn't working, he said so directly. For an actor like Hanks, known for professionalism and humility, that level of candor was demanding but ultimately valuable. The public narrative surrounding their work often focuses on warmth and nostalgia. But Hanks has clarified that the reality was more complex. There were long discussions about tone, character motivation, and emotional restraint. Reiner pushed for realism even in moments that could have leaned toward sentimentality. That insistence shaped Hanks' understanding of subtlety, something that would later define his most acclaimed performances. Another element Hanks has pointed to is the sense of responsibility Reiner carried as a storyteller. He believed that films mattered, that they shaped how audiences understood relationships, morality, and human behavior. That belief influenced the atmosphere on set. It wasn't about ego or control. It was about purpose. For Hanks, witnessing that level of commitment left a lasting impression. Over time, this collaboration became a benchmark for Hanks. In interviews, he has hinted that it raised his expectations for future directors and projects. Once you experience a creative environment where nothing is accidental, it becomes difficult to return to anything less. That realization didn't come without cost. It meant higher standards, more self-criticism, and a deeper awareness of the weight actors carry in telling meaningful stories. What makes Hanks' reflections at this stage of his life So striking is their tone. There is no resentment, no revisionism. Instead, there is gratitude mixed with honesty. He acknowledges that working with Rob Reiner was demanding, occasionally uncomfortable, and absolutely essential to his growth. The truth he's telling now is not about conflict. It's about impact. This was the beginning of a creative lesson that would echo throughout Hank's career. That the most valuable collaborations are often the ones that challenge you the most. And this was only the first layer of that truth as time passed. Tom Hanks began to understand that his experience with Rob Reiner represented more than just a successful collaboration. It marked a shift in how he approached his entire career. In recent reflections, Hanks has explained that working with Reiner forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth. Talent alone was not enough. Discipline, humility, and emotional precision mattered just as much, if not more. Reiner's expectations made it clear that every choice carried weight. What surprised Hanks most was how intentional Reiner was about emotional restraint. Rather than encouraging big performances, Reiner often asked for less. He pushed Hanks to trust silence, to let moments breathe, and to resist the instinct to overplay emotion. At the time, this approach felt counterintuitive. But looking back, Hanks has acknowledged that learning when not to act was one of the most important lessons of his career. There were moments of creative tension that never became public. Hanks has admitted that some scenes required multiple takes, not because of technical issues, but because Reiner sensed something emotionally misaligned. These moments could be frustrating, especially for an actor eager to deliver. But Reiner's persistence wasn't about control. It was about honesty. If a moment didn't feel real, it wasn't good enough. Hanks has also spoken about the psychological pressure of working under such scrutiny. Every performance was examined closely, every decision questioned. That environment demanded self-awareness and emotional endurance. For Hanks, who values collaboration and trust, this pressure ultimately strengthened his confidence. It taught him that criticism, when rooted in respect, could be a tool rather than a threat. Another truth Hanks has shared is how much Reiner valued preparation. Nothing was left to chance. Scenes were discussed in detail long before cameras rolled. Motivation, backstory, and emotional logic were all explored. This level of preparation created a safety net on set, allowing actors to take risks without losing clarity. Hanks later carried this approach into many of his own projects. Crediting Reiner for shaping that discipline, what makes Hanks' recent comments so compelling is his admission that he didn't fully appreciate these lessons at the time. Youth brings momentum, but age brings perspective. At 69, Hanks now sees that Reiner wasn't just directing a film, he was mentoring a mindset. The standards Reiner set became internalized, influencing how Hanks evaluated scripts, collaborators, and even his own performances for decades afterward. Hanks has also clarified that their relationship was built on mutual respect, not hierarchy. While Reiner was firm, he was also open to discussion. Disagreements weren't shut down. They were explored. That openness created an environment where honesty could exist without ego dominating the process. It's a rare balance, and Hanks has suggested that few collaborations since have matched it. Importantly, Hanks has pushed back against the idea that these truths diminish Reiner in any way. If anything, they humanize him. Great directors are not gentle because they lack empathy. They're demanding because they care deeply about the work. Reiner's intensity came from belief, not insecurity. That distinction matters to Hanks, especially now. What emerges from these reflections is a deeper understanding of why this collaboration continues to resonate. It wasn't just about making something memorable, it was about learning how to tell the truth on screen without decoration. That lesson stayed with Hanks long after the project ended. And as he continues to reflect, one realization stands out: the impact of Rob Reiner didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. It followed him into every role that came after. With decades of experience behind him, Tom Hanks now speaks about Rob Reiner not just as a director he once worked with, but as a defining influence on his professional identity. In recent interviews and reflections, Hanks has suggested that the lessons he learned during that collaboration became a quiet standard he carried into every project afterward. Long after awards, box office success, and global recognition, those early creative pressures continued to shape how he approached storytelling. One of the most revealing truths Hanks has shared is how much Reiner changed his relationship with vulnerability. Before that period, Hanks admits he sometimes relied on charm or instinct to carry scenes forward. Reiner challenged that comfort. He demanded emotional specificity, asking not just what a character felt, but why they felt it and whether the audience truly needed to see it expressed. That discipline taught Hanks to respect restraint as a form of honesty. Hanks has also spoken about how Reiner influenced his understanding of leadership. Watching Reiner manage a set showed him that authority doesn't come from volume or intimidation, but from preparation and clarity. Reiner's confidence came from knowing the story inside and out. That example later informed how Hanks interacted with directors, writers, and crew members, especially as he became a veteran presence on set. Another layer of truth Hanks has acknowledged is that the collaboration forced him to confront self-doubt. When someone pushes you to justify every choice, it exposes insecurities you didn't realize you had. Rather than breaking him down, that process strengthened his trust in his own instincts, but only after he learned to question them first. It was an uncomfortable balance, but one that ultimately made him a more disciplined actor. What's striking is how Hanks frames this now not as a struggle, but as a gift. At 69, he understands that growth often comes disguised as pressure. Reiner didn't offer reassurance freely. He offered clarity. And clarity, Hanks says, lasts far longer than praise. That realization has reshaped how he evaluates his own career milestones. The moments that mattered most weren't the easiest. They were the most demanding. Hanks has also revealed that working with Reiner changed how he responds to criticism. Early in his career, criticism could feel personal. Under Reiner's direction, he learned to separate ego from execution. Notes weren't judgments. They were tools. That mindset helped him survive an industry known for volatility and rejection. It allowed him to remain grounded even as his fame grew. Perhaps the most unexpected truth Hanks has shared is how rare such collaborations are. Despite working with countless talented directors, he admits that very few relationships pushed him in the same fundamental way. That rarity is part of why he feels compelled to speak honestly now. He wants younger artists to understand that discomfort, when rooted in respect, is often where real growth begins. There's also a sense of gratitude in Hanks' reflections. Time has softened any lingering frustration and replaced it with appreciation. He recognizes that Reiner saw something in him that was still forming and refused to let him settle for less. That belief, expressed through high standards, was transformative. As Hanks looks back, the truth he's sharing isn't about conflict or controversy. It's about influence. It's about acknowledging the people who shaped you in ways you didn't fully understand at the time. And in that sense, his words about Rob Reiner are less of a revelation and more of a long overdue acknowledgement. And yet, there is still one final truth Hanks has only recently begun to articulate, one that reframes their collaboration not just as formative, but as defining. At this point in his life, Tom Hanks speaks about Rob Reiner with a clarity that only distance and maturity can provide. The final truth he has begun to articulate isn't about pressure, perfectionism, or even creative tension. It's about timing. Hanks now believes that meeting Rob Reiner when he did changed the entire trajectory of his career, and that the same collaboration might not have had the same impact at any other stage of his life. According to Hanks, he was at a crossroads when their paths aligned. He had success, momentum, and public affection, but he was still forming his artistic identity. Reiner entered his life at precisely the moment when he was open enough to be challenged, yet experienced enough to absorb those challenges. That balance, Hanks says, is rare. Too early, and the pressure might have overwhelmed him. Too late, and it might have been dismissed. The timing made the lessons permanent. What Hanks is now willing to say openly is that Reiner didn't just shape a performance, he reshaped his sense of responsibility as an actor. After that collaboration, Hanks no longer viewed roles as opportunities to impress, but as obligations to serve the story. That shift became foundational. It influenced how he chose projects, how he prepared, and how he measured success. Popularity mattered less. Integrity mattered more. There is also a deeply personal dimension to this truth. Hanks has acknowledged that Reiner's insistence on honesty extended beyond the camera. Conversations weren't limited to scenes. They touched on values, fear, and intention. Those exchanges stayed with him. They reinforced the idea that storytelling carries moral weight, that films can shape empathy, memory, and understanding. That belief later became central to many of Hanks' most respected performances. Importantly, Hanks has emphasized that this truth doesn't diminish his other collaborators. Rather, it highlights how singular certain relationships can be. Not every project is meant to transform you. Most are meant to refine you. But very few change how you see yourself. Rob Reiner, in Hanks' words, was part of that rare category. At 69, Hanks also recognizes something he couldn't see earlier: the emotional cost Reiner carried as a director. Leading with conviction means absorbing doubt, criticism, and pressure on behalf of the entire team. Hanks now views Reiner's intensity with greater compassion. What once felt demanding now reads as commitment. What once felt rigid now feels protective of the story, of the audience, and of the people involved. The truth Hanks is sharing today is not dramatic, but it is profound. He's acknowledging that his longevity, credibility, and trust with audiences were not accidents. They were shaped by moments where comfort was replaced by challenge, and where ego was replaced by discipline. Reiner represented one of those moments. This reflection also explains why Hanks chose to speak now. With nothing left to prove, honesty becomes easier. There's no need to preserve myths or simplify history. At this stage, the truth isn't risky, it's liberating. And the truth, as Hanks tells it, is rooted in gratitude. In the end, what Tom Hanks has finally revealed about Rob Reiner isn't a secret or a controversy. It's a recognition. A recognition that some collaborations leave marks that time only makes clearer. That some people influence you so deeply, their impact doesn't fade, it clarifies. And perhaps the most telling part of all is this: even after decades of success, Tom Hanks still measures himself against the standards set during that collaboration. Not because it was perfect, but because it taught him what honest work really looks like.